Ryan's father broke through the wall of reality itself and entered another universe. And now, Ryan and his friends have to face the threat that the VR Troopers were created to take on. This is VR Troopers number 1. Hello there, Geek Collective, and welcome to Geeks Plus Comics, where we are more than just your average geek. I, of course, am your host for today, Cross, and we are checking out a brand new release from Boom Studios and VR Troopers number 1. VR Troopers is based on the kids' TV show of the same name that aired for 2 seasons from 1994 to 1996 from Saban Entertainment. VR Troopers was created by Saban Entertainment, seeking to recapture the lightning in the bottle success that they had found with Power Rangers. It would be the first of many Power Rangers sister shows, including other shows such as Mairghread and Beetleborgs. They were all trying to replicate the American actors with Japanese action footage, but none of these properties seemed to be able to have the same success that Power Rangers had. VR Troopers would go on to have a toy line, a board game, a video game, and a comic book series, but most of that stuff was left in the 90s along with the TV show. Undoubtedly, when you have a juggernaut like Power Rangers on your hands, there's never a need to resurrect the other properties. Power Rangers has been going non-stop for so many years. Why would you ever need to bring back the other series? And that's where VR Troopers stayed. And it felt like that's where it was going to be, remaining dormant in some vault at Saban Entertainment. That is, until they recently made an appearance. In Power Rangers number 53 from Boom Studios, we get an Easter egg of Ryan, Caitlin, and JB all being mentioned as candidates to become the Green Ranger. It would seem like they were just an Easter egg, that is, until the Power Rangers Prime series came out last year in 2024. Power Rangers Prime was the equivalent of the Marvel Ultimate Universe. It was an alternative timeline with different backgrounds, different heroes wearing the costumes, different from the world that we already knew. And in the world where the Power Rangers were slightly different, this world also had the VR Troopers. Their appearance in Power Rangers Prime would lead to this, their own mini-series from Boom Studios. And that's what we're going to be kicking off looking at today in VR Troopers number 1. But before we jump into the comic review for today, remember to do all the usual YouTubey stuff. If you were enjoying the video, head on down, hit that like button, show your love. We greatly appreciate it and it really does help us out. And also make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future videos from us. Also, if you're enjoying the content from us, why not go and check out our Patreon, where you'll get early access to all the videos here from the channel, as well as our other channels, our gaming and tabletop channels, as well as some other stuff as well over on Patreon that are exclusive to our supporters over there, and you can support us for as little as $2 a month. Alright, we've got all that stuff out the way, let's dive on in. This is VR Troopers number 1. VR Troopers number 1 is written by Mairghread Scott, with artwork by Sebastian Piriz. Colours are from JP Jordan and lettering by Taylor Esposito. Our issue begins in Angel Grove, California. It's 2:15 AM and Ryan is lying in his bed wide awake. He thinks about the words his dad had said to him, that if he had a problem, then first thing you do is check and see if you're bleeding. If you are, fix that ASAP. And if you're not, then how bad can things really be? He's not hungry, thirsty, injured or in danger. He's just alone. Ryan gets out of bed, leaving his dog lying there completely passed out. He gets dressed and heads out to clear his head, and goes for a run in the morning air. On his run, Ryan weighs up the events of his life. He thinks about his mom leaving when he was just a kid and his dad dying right before he entered high school. He thinks about his girlfriend, or, well, ex-girlfriend, Valentina, and how complicated that situation is. We also get an editor's note here regarding Ryan's ex-girlfriend, and for context to see the recent issues of Power Rangers Prime, which I'll get into at the end of the issue when I talk about my thoughts on that. In the midst of personal loss, Ryan reflects on Earth being in the Eltarian colony, and that he has the honour of being a VR trooper, an elite human fighter given the training and tech to make the world a better place, and to help the intergalactic problems that Earth deals with as part of that Eltarian empire. On his run, Ryan makes it all the way to the Angel Grove water and power plant. While he catches his breath, he finds a hole cut in the chain link fence and decides he's going to investigate. Ryan grabs his virtualizer and yells, "Trooper transform!" as his VR trooper armour forms around his body like nanotech armour. He thinks that a little investigation and a little light crime fighting is just what you need to take his mind off of everything. As he begins to explore the building, Ryan finds a woman wearing a mask. He tries to ask who she is, but she runs off and he feels that he may have just lost himself the element of surprise. He loses track of her, and then there's a massive flash and a loud noise. He goes over and finds her passed out on the ground. Ryan now has no idea what's going on. What started out as a simple robbery bust is evolving into something much worse. With the woman passed out, Ryan finds a hooded figure and decides to call in Caitlin and JB for backup in this one. He tells them it's a code red situation and he needs them at his location. Unfortunately, as he finishes that sentence, there's a gun pointed directly at his head, and the hooded figure tells him that now might not be soon enough for him. Ryan's able to dodge out of the way, and the hooded figure says that he is going to give the trooper one chance to just walk away. But Ryan says that that isn't in his vocabulary. Ryan then dives at the hooded figure with an electrified Superman punch, which lands a direct hit. Unfortunately, the hooded figure rallies quickly, grabbing Ryan's arm and throws him through a nearby window. Ryan is able to regain his footing just in time for the hooded figure to charge straight through him. But as he goes down, Ryan is able to hold on to the hooded figure and flip him over onto the ground with him. Ryan throws a kick along with a little trash talking, which might be premature as the hooded figure proceeds to grab him by the head and slams him face first into the ground, saying, "Don't feel bad, I've been doing this a lot longer than you." Ryan doesn't think he can beat this guy on his own, so decides to grab his gun, shooting the machine that the hooded figure had been working on. As the machine falls apart and the hooded figure lets out a scream of "No!", the hooded figure looks at him and says that this is on you now, Ryan. As he grabs his own gun and makes his way over to the hostages that he had tied up, he tells Ryan to give him his virtualizer or he's gonna kill them. Ryan plays for time as he doesn't have much of a choice now that there are hostages in play. He deactivates his armour and hands the hooded figure his virtualizer, thinking that only he can activate it, so it's useless to the hooded figure anyway. As Ryan wonders what he plans to do with it, the hooded figure holds it above his head and says, "Trooper, transform." The virtualizer begins to activate and attempts to transform the hooded figure. Something isn't quite right though, as he isn't able to complete the process. And while this is happening, JB and Caitlin finally arrive. JB runs the hooded figure through with his lance, to which the hooded figure says, "You want to play dirty? So can I," as he activates a teleporter and escapes. JB and Caitlin check on Ryan. He's fine and has managed to get his virtualizer back in all of the commotion. Later, our trio return to the VR Trooper headquarters. The update is Irish, their Eltarian point of contact, on the situation at the water and power plant. They tell her that the civilians were all okay, although they had no memory of how they got there to the plant. Also, they'd all been wearing Zicto brand VR goggles. Zarish states that the goggles are a common sleep aid for humans, so perhaps these civilians were all kidnapped while they were unconscious. This still leaves the question though, of why they were taken in the first place. Zarish also had the remains of the device the hooded figure had been working on brought to the trooper headquarters. JB has found it difficult to identify the device, but best that he can work out, all the components are from Earth, and the device is meant to be some sort of teleporter, but he can't say for certain. Zarish wants to send it to the Altarian Science Division to take a look. JB's not too thrilled at that, but she says that even though she considers him as good as any Altarian scientist, it would be irresponsible of them not to use all the resources at their disposal. She then turns their attention to the hooded figure from the confrontation. Thanks to what she pulled from their visor info, she was able to run them through several Altarian databases. Their name is classified, but they are registered as a high-level security threat to both Earth and Eltar. The hooded figure is also from Earth. Just not this Earth. Zarish tells the troopers that this information is classified and isn't even known to most Altarians. The universe isn't just infinite in terms of space, but also in terms of variation. It's believed that 2 years ago this hooded figure was able to cross the boundaries that separate the universes, and has become a reality fugitive. One that the Altarian government would very much like to talk with, and this is also the real reason why the VR troopers were created in the first place. Zarish then drops a massive bombshell on the troopers, especially on Ryan, saying that the reason the reality fugitive is here is because Ryan's dad was the one that breached the barrier first, and it was doing this that got him killed. Tyler Steele and his colleagues were studying the reality barrier and attempting to pierce it. These experiments were done without Altarian knowledge or approval, and the experiments inevitably failed, leaving no survivors. However, the Altarians began to prepare, as the premise itself was sound, and they believed that someone from another reality would likely succeed where Ryan's father had failed. Ryan is furious. He had asked the Altarians to look into his father's death, and they had known for some time, and just chose not to tell him. Not until he needed to know, which was apparently not until now. Ryan storms off and Zarish tries to stop him. Caitlin gets in her way and tells her to let him go as he needs some space. In fact, they all do. Ryan heads home and tries to logic out the situation. That with everything going on, his main focus should be the reality fugitive and stopping him before he does worse in this reality. But even as he tries to logic that out, he can't help but go to the box of keepsakes that he has and begin to look through old pictures of him and his dad. Back at Trooper HQ, JB and Caitlin are discussing what went down with Ryan and the new info about his dad. They agree that the Altarians keeping what had happened to Ryan's dad a secret was messed up, but JB believes that there's still more that Zarish isn't telling them. He brings up that the VR Troopers' virtualizers are keyed to their biosignatures, so that it's impossible for someone to just use their powers if they get their hands on one. The reality fugitive couldn't access Ryan's trooper armor, but they almost did, which likely means that they are related to Ryan, as they have a similar enough biosignature to start the transformation process. JB showed this footage to Zarish. This is something that she likely would have been aware of when she watched the footage, but for some reason is choosing not to mention it to them. It's either something the Altarians don't think they need to know, or something they don't want them to know. As the two discuss the strange goings on, we see the reality fugitive working in his lab. He is cast in shadow and we're unable to see what he looks like. But lying on his desk is a photograph. A photograph of Ryan and his dad, exactly like the one in Ryan's keepsake box. The issue closes with Ryan looking at the pictures of him and his dad, and thinks to himself that he isn't bleeding as far as he knows, but he is sick and tired of being kept in the dark by people that claim that they care about him, and he asks himself if that is a problem. And there you have it, folks. That is VR Troopers #1. A very intriguing cliffhanger to leave off on, and a very interesting first issue for this mini-series. I have some thoughts on this one. And I'm just going to be completely honest on my kind of thought pattern on it. Because it very well could be that I've just went into it with the wrong frame of mind. I have not been keeping up with Boom Studios Power Rangers series. I've fallen so far behind on that. And I wanted to start picking up Power Rangers Prime when it started coming out, and I was picking up so many other stuff for the channel, and I was doing other stuff, and I had other stuff going on in my life that I just was not able to get on that series, and I desperately want to catch up with Power Rangers Prime. So I'm in a place now where I'm like, I don't really want to pick those up to be regular coverage on the channel because we're so far behind. I'd like to do a full series of stuff if I can. So when VR Troopers came out, I thought, fantastic. Something that's from Saban Entertainment, something that's part of that kind of Power Rangers universe jumping in. So I thought it'd be a clean slate to jump into. And I think that's my first biggest complaint for it, was that I became very lost very quickly, because I watched a little bit of VR Troopers when I was growing up, and I did a little bit of research into what VR Troopers was when I was writing the kind of like little blurb of the history of VR Troopers for the start of this video. VR Troopers in this and what it's covering is nothing to do with what the show used to be. And it's like, okay, so you're not really... Whereas like when you restarted Power Rangers, when it initially began with Boom Studios, you were kind of capturing that nostalgia of Power Rangers fans. But you're not really catching that nostalgia of anyone who was fans of VR Troopers, because it doesn't play into what VR Troopers were. There's not the same villains. It's a different story. You're part of the Eltarian Empire, which wasn't part of it. So you're not really catching that world. And if you want to reimagine VR Troopers, then fair enough. That's absolutely fine. Reimagine it. There's so many like nostalgic properties coming out there now that are doing reimaginings, that are playing with the idea of stuff that was from the original and revamping it for a new world, creating a new story based upon it. But within the first few pages, we're getting like a little hint at Ryan and who he is, clearly the main character, clearly the main focus of it, the head VR Trooper. And it's like, okay, fantastic. He goes out for a run, like, okay, we're getting into his head, we're about to find out his mom and his dad, you know, they passed away and when he was younger, like, okay, we're getting a feel for the character, and then it mentions his girlfriend or his ex-girlfriend. And then there's the editor's note of see Power Rangers Prime. I didn't read any real solicitations for this, I just saw it was VR Troopers and I wanted to go in blind. I didn't know about VR Troopers appearing in Power Rangers Prime. I didn't know about the appearance and leading to this or anything like that. I just saw the comic and came in. And maybe that's my fault. Maybe I didn't know that this was a tie-in to that universe. And I'm like, so not only is this being rewritten as like a tie-in with Power Rangers, which if it was a tie-in with Power Rangers, that makes sense, fit them in the same world. But it's a tie-in to Power Rangers Prime, and they even appeared in that before this. So I feel like coming into this, like if I've not read Power Rangers Prime, which I've not, I'm already starting off on a back foot of getting into this world. And don't get me wrong, I do want to pick up Power Rangers Prime and find out how it's tied in, but it's like, if I'm just picking up the VR Troopers miniseries, it's this whole new world, and you feel like, okay, oh, well, it's in Power Rangers Prime, so there's this whole setup, and I'm like, but Power Rangers Prime is like 2 volumes deep at this point, at least, and I'm like, you've already kind of lost me a little bit with it, because you're not playing into the nostalgia fully. Excuse me, but it's also not very new reader friendly, because you're already telling people within the first few pages, hey, you've missed something. So right off the bat, I was kind of a little bit, that's not the best feeling for it. Overall, like, the story was intriguing for this. It was very intriguing. Like, I like the idea of, like, okay, we're in a world where it's like the Altarian Empire, kind of Earth is part of that. The VR Troopers are kind of warriors. I want to kind of know how that fits in with the Power Rangers Prime. It doesn't cover it in this. Maybe it does in the Power Rangers Prime series. And I'm like, okay, that's intriguing. And it's dealing with the multiversal stuff. And there's other Earths, and Ryan's dad was the one that initially tried to burst through, and then someone else's came back, and clearly this is either another version of Ryan, another version of his dad, or even just his dad that is actually the hooded figure. At least that's what it's heavily hinting at. There could be a twist that that's not what it is, but it seems to be very heavy-handed that that's the direction they're going, which I'm intrigued when it's a mini-series, what they're going to do with that, and if it's just trying to set up to get a full series. But I'm intrigued enough to kind of see where it goes and get a feel of it. I do feel like, though, like, it was, for what is a team of 3, like, obviously it's a major focus on Ryan's story. I don't know what it's going to go from here, but I hope we get a lot more of JB and Caitlin, because I feel like we got a tiny bit of JB because it talks about his scientific knowledge being on that level of the Altarian scientist when he's looking at something. But, like, that's all we know about him. And then Caitlin, we learn nothing about her. Your 3 main characters that are on the cover of, like, pretty much every issue of this, and 2 of them I know nothing about. It's all about Ryan, and even then I don't feel like I know Ryan that much so far. I don't feel intrigued of his story. I just know it's a story between him and his dad, and it's clearly that's what the miniseries is leading to and talking about, and that's what's going to be explored. And I'm like, but if you explore that in the however many issues the miniseries is, I don't think we're going to get much on the other characters. I don't know how much world building there's going to be in that as well. So for me, like, I guess I understand what it was trying to be. It was trying to be an expansion on this new Prime universe for the Power Rangers. It was an attempt to reach into these other properties, and it's probably a feeling ground for, if VR Troopers does well, maybe we'll start to see stuff for Masked Rider and Beetleborgs and these other Saban properties that haven't really been utilised. Maybe they'll start to see a return, which I wouldn't be against. I was a much bigger fan of Masked Rider and Beetleborgs growing up than I was of VR Troopers. I just feel like VR Troopers missed the mark. It had an intriguing enough story that I'm kind of wanting to see the miniseries out and see where it goes. But I've not got high hopes for it, and I don't see this being... I imagine this miniseries was put out to be successful so that they could try and launch a series. That's where I imagine it going, or at least have the characters reappear more often. And the honest truth is, I don't know if it'll get that much success. I feel like it's tried to find a way to bring in everybody, and it's missing the mark on hitting most people that would be intrigued by it. Like, any nostalgia fans that are coming in because they love VR Troopers are getting a completely different set of VR Troopers. Which in the Prime universe for Power Rangers is fine, but you've already had how many years of the Power Rangers we know in Boom Studios and telling stories with them and expanding the universe with them before you did that. And then for new readers, I feel like you're going to be like me, where you went in and like, oh, I've missed a whole bunch of stuff already. I don't know the world they're in. I don't know the setup for it. Oh, I should go and check out Power Rangers Prime if I want to know about VR Troopers. And I'm like, that's not a successful way. Like, what you do is you tell a good story with VR Troopers, and if people enjoy that universe, it's then a hint of like, oh, Power Rangers Prime is set in this same universe. I kind of want to go check that out as well. And I feel like it's just missed the mark on that. I don't think it's hitting the points it needs to hit. The artwork in it is really good. I really enjoyed the art of the book. I think it's done very well. I think the stellar selling point for this is the covers. The cover art for these are stunning. Go and look at the variants. The main A cover is phenomenal, but the variants are amazing as well. There's some really great and creative artwork. Some of them are beautiful. Just great colours, great designs, great ideas for it. But I feel like it's trying to play a multiverse story in a world where people are starting to get tired of multiverse stuff because it's being done to death in so many variants. I saw so many comments about this comic being like, it's just a multiverse story. You know, there's a multiverse story to it, and it's like, I've seen so many people, when they see multiverse happening and stuff, it's kind of like, is that really needed? You know, it's like I saw a comment on something else today, like it was part of the multiverse thing. I'm like, do we really need another multiverse thing? People are starting to get tired of the trope already. And it's like, I feel like it's just playing into that trope maybe too late to the end of the trend. But if you're intrigued by it, by all means go and check it out. I wouldn't go. From the praise that I've heard from Power Rangers Prime and the Boom Power Rangers series, go check those out. They're phenomenal. VR Troopers, I feel like, unfortunately, just like the show, it's just pales in comparison compared to the Power Rangers. It is like it's the red-headed stepchild that's just being left to the side and just ignored by the family. Like, I feel like that's what's going to happen with the comic and the miniseries. I would love to be proved wrong, but this just doesn't match up. And I'm sorry to say that, because I had high hopes that this was going to do something interesting with these characters, because like, I wasn't a huge fan of the show. I kind of liked it until I realised it was like Power Rangers but not enough. I'm like, okay, I'm grown and mature, I'm wanting to see, look, can you tell a good story with these characters? And right now the truth is, it doesn't seem like you can. But I'm willing to check out the rest of the series and be proven wrong, but I wouldn't recommend y'all checking this out until you hear about the full mini-series and if it's worth it, if the payoff's worth it. But I think that's it for me for today, though. I wish I had a better kind of review to give on this one, but you know, not everything's a winner. But thank you so much for joining me, and remember, it's a good week to be a geek. Take care, and we'll see you all next time. Peace.